more hawkish circles is that the deal is too time constrained, it's unrelated, and it does not deal with any of Iran's other malevolent actions in the Middle East. Trump says that these are the reasons that he wanted to get out of the deal. Put Trump aside for a minute. Do you think that the deal was tough enough?
I think it was the best of the alternatives we could produce at that time. If we could have done a much more comprehensive deal that included, all of Iran's threatening behavior in the Middle East, we would have done that. But we weren't going to get our closest European allies, as well as the Russians and Chinese, to agree to really strong international sanctions if the aims were that wide, at least right at the outset. Like any arms control process I've been involved in over the years with the Soviets and with the Russians, these aren't one-off agreements. You build on them over time. And so our expectation always was, with this nuclear agreement with Iran, that we were then going to have to build on it to try to extend the timelines in terms of some of the constraints on, Iranian capacities, to push back in other areas in the Middle East. We were just in a better position to do that when we had united most of the international community around that set of goals. We were in a better position to deal with all of those other threatening Iranian actions.
Why do you think Trump pulled out?
I think partly it's just because it was a legacy of the Obama administration. I don't think President Trump had ever pored over the 150 pages in the agreement. I think this was about undoing something that had been done before. There were a lot of cheerleaders amongst, our closest allies and partners in the region, and the Netanyahu government in Israel and Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, who were kind of encouraging Trump in this direction as well. So I don't think there was any great mystery. The only surprise to me was that he took until May of last year to pull out of the agreement.
All right. Is this then the crisis of the last couple of weeks? Is this self-created?
I think the crisis of the last couple of weeks is something that we've had a very large hand in helping to create. I'm not trying to suggest that threats from Iran are something that we caused. I mean, as I said before, Iran has threatened our interests for a long time. But I think by pulling out of the nuclear deal and then embarking on this policy of maximum pressure, untethered to any clear or realistic goals, or even coherent goals, because the president from time to time will say, well, all I want is to ensure the Iranians don't have nuclear weapons, which is precisely what the Comprehensive Nuclear Agreement did, while others, like his National Security Advisor or Secretary of State, suggest goals that are much more connected to either the capitulation of this Iranian regime across a whole range of issues or its implosion. And so there's a kind of incoherence in the strategy, an approach where, professional diplomats always talk about coercive diplomacy. And the problem with this version of coercive diplomacy is it's all about the coercion part and not at all about diplomacy. If you don't connect that kind of pressure to realistic goals, you're creating a lot of trouble.